Hello guys, and welcome back to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. So guys, in today's video we're going to be learning how to cut and sew an inbuilt corset, so just like the picture you saw previously. So these are all of my pieces. I've finished cutting at this point and ironed all of my patterns. So we're going to be starting with the cutting of the video of this project first, and then in our next coming video I'll show you guys how to sew it. So I decided to do it this way so we don't rush anything. Okay, so that is why. So at this point I'm just trying to place all of my lines on my pattern paper. So that second line, that's my bust line. The first line there, the up one, is the shoulder line, the bust point line. The second one, that's the third one, is the under bust line, and then the fourth one is the waistline, and then this last one is the hip line. Okay, so these are all of my lines. So this line now where my hand is, that's the shoulder line. So you divide your shoulder measurement into two and then you place it, and then I came down by 1 inch for shoulder slope, and then from that shoulder slope I came down by 8 inches, and then I connected it and then just ruled it this way. So 8 inches is what I use. So you divide your round sleeve measurement into two, you are going to have 8 inches. So from that point I'm just marking my bust measurement. So note, this is the back of the dress we are doing first, and then before we go to the front to draft the front part. So I divide my under bust measurement into four, and then you place it, and then you divide your waist measurement also into four. For instance, if your waist measurement is 40, divide into four, that's 10. Add it, and then you add your stitching allowance. Okay, so that stitching allowance that I'm adding includes my dart. So I'll use, for this back piece I'll use just 1 inch for my dart. So when I am done with those two, I'll come to the down part of my blouse. I'll measure the hip line, which is like 40, because it is an inbuilt, so it need to get to the hip line point. Okay, so it will be long because it is an inbuilt, so that is why. So you measure your hip measurement, divide by 4, and then place it at that last line. So the next thing we want to do now, I want to take out the dart. So for the dart I'm using my nipple to nipple measurement, which is my bust pan. So I'll use 4.5 inches. So yeah, that is 9. You divide that into 2, you have 4.5. So you mark 4.5 across all of these lines, and then that's my chest line. So I just extended the line upwards. So the dart that I'm going to use, I'll use just 1 inch dart. So what I'm going to do, I'll come to that under bust point, I'll mark it half of an inch, and then from that point I'll just take it and then mark it into my hip part. So the dart, where the area where I need to take out the dart is the waist part mainly, so you can see it. So guys, so please like this video. I would appreciate if you hit on the like button. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm trying to divide that remaining side of the back into two. So I'll just take the middle point and then rule it down. So I want to snatch the waist, so I want to take out 1 inch from this side now of my, that's from the side, from the waist measurement. So that is, so snatching just literally means you taking out another extra from your pattern. So that's it. It's not like a big deal. Okay, so that's it. Take out an extra dart, that's all. So at this point I'm measuring my waist, my neckline measurement. So for the neckline I'm using 3 inches width. So since this is the back, 3 inches by 2 inches. So the next thing, I want to create a curve for the back yoke. So in order for me to create the curve, I'll just come down by 1 inch for that back. So sorry about that, the camera did not capture that, and then just curve it into that dart line. So that was why I extended that dart line, you understand, so that you'll be able to create that corset style back line for that. So you can see, so just connect it that way. So at this point, since I'm going to be using eyelet for my dress, so I'm taking out another extra 2 inches from my pattern. If you notice, this back pattern, initially I did not add zip to it, but yet I'm still taking out an extra of 2 inches so that the corset back, to have that corset back. So that is what I am doing. So that is that line that I marked now. After marking that line, the next thing now is for us to cut. You see how easy it is to create the back. So Now I'll cut the side. So like I said, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. So I've cut out the yolk. So that's the yolk. So that yolk, you just pass it through that back so you can see the curve so that I made. So this one now that I'm cutting out, throw that out, and then so I'll just label them. I have three. The back is divided into three parts now, and then I'll cut them all out. So just use those dart lines and then cut out. And then as you are cutting, make sure you label them. Label up on up. That's put, you can see I labeled my own so I'll know the up part and the down part. So label that. If you find this video helpful, please hit on the like button, and if you have not subscribed, please, I would appreciate for you to subscribe. So now this is the main part, which is our front. So I'm labeling all of the lines. The first line I label was the shoulder line, under bust line, under bust, waistline, and then the full length. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do, these are the measurements. The bust is 44 inches, the waist is 30, the under bust is 36 inches, the waist is 37 inches, and then the hip is 44 inches. So these are all of the measurements that I'm going to be making use of for this blouse. So the next thing, now you come to your shoulder line. That's the shoulder line. You divide your shoulder measurement into two, add 1 inch for allowance, and then come down by 1 inch to create your shoulder slope. So you slope that into that point. From here, I'm going to mark 8 inches for my round armhole measurement. So when I mark that round measurement, when I mark it, I'm going to connect it straight. So that line is going to serve as my chest line. So from that point, I'll take half of that 8 inches, and then I want to, this is the front armhole, so it needs to come in a little bit. Okay, so I'll create that curve, that armhole curve. So I'll just create it to meet that point that I came out from my front armhole. So the next thing, I want to take out our dart. So I'm using the same 4.5 that I used for the back. I will just mark it across all of the lines that I have marked out already, and then I'll use my straight ruler to connect it. Just rule it straight and then rule it straight. So the next I want to take out our dart. So I'm using 3 inches. I took out 1 inch to the left and then 2 inches to the right. So you can see this is 1 inch and then that one is 2 inches. So everything is total of 3. So from there, I'll connect it to the bust point line. Okay, so just take and rule it to the bust point line, and then this one on the side, the middle one, also connect it, also let it hit the bust point line. So you can see how I'm trying to just arrange it. So when you hit that part, the next thing, now we want to tighten our chest area. That's what we call the over bust tightening. Before we do the over bust tightening, you need to extend a little bit so that your bustier or your corset will not be open on the chest area. So for this, I decided to use 7.5 inches. That's from the top. So but that's basically what I did. I came up 1.5 inch from my chest line. Okay, so and then extended the line upwards. So after that, I want to use 2 inches or 0.75, so it depends on what you want. So I came in 0.75 on one side and then 0.75 on the other side, and then that line that I came in, I connected it to the bust to hit that bust point line. So you can see it gave me a beautiful curve, and then I'll do the same thing to the other one also. It will give a beautiful curve. So you can see my curves, they look so fine. The next thing, I want to create the neckline. That's the depth of that middle neckline. So it depends on how deep you want it to be. So for this, I'll come in. Initially I wanted to use 10 inches. I now changed my mind to use 9.5 inches because the clients, you want a deep neckline. So you can see, so after coming down, all you are going to do is just create an arc to meet that over bust tightening line that you did, and then the arc, you create it again, let it flow into the armhole area. So that's just basically how to create those plunging necklines. So you can see, you create it is already a plunging neckline, and then the other one also connect the other one to the armhole area. So this part, I was just trying to like create it. I wanted my curve to be equal, and then I'll just blend it. So after that, I'll check the dart leg that I have here to make sure that it is the same. If not, if it is not the same, when I'm sewing, it's going to truncate the pattern Okay, so from this point I want to take out my neckline. So I used 3.5 inches. I think I used about 4 inches thereabout, because the clients, you don't want a very tight neckline. You know, some people, they'll see those beautiful high necklines, they'll like it, but when you make it for them, they'll complain that the net is choking them or is holding their neck. So I came down. So the next thing, I want to take out our full body measurement. At this point, divide your bust measurement into 4, and then remember your tightening that, place that back into your pattern, and then add your stitching allowance. Okay, so the next thing now, I'll come to my bust line. So I'll just connect that line to that bust line, and then I'll come to my under bust line, divide that 36 by 4, and then remember my 3 inches that I took out of my dart. I'll bring that back into my pattern, and then excuse me, I'll add my stitching allowance. So stitching allowance depends on how many inches you want to add, but since it is a snatch waist, I will advise you don't add so much allowance. You can just add like 1 inch or 1.5 inch just to stitch. So the next thing, I'll come to my waistline, divide my waist into 4, and then add my dart line, that intake, and then add my stitching allowance, and then come to your hip line. So add the same hip line measurement, that's the hip measurement, divide by 4, add your dart intake, and then add your stitching allowance. So when you are done, you create out your pattern. You, at this point, you will know if your pattern looks good or if it is odd. So for this point, I want to tighten the waistline. So I want to take out another extra 1 inch from this side. Okay, so I divided that 1 inch into 2. It's not going to go into my bust line. I don't want it. So I just want to tighten the waist area alone. So that is what I want. So at this point, I was just trying to blend it to make sure that I don't take out anything from my bust area. Okay, and then what I have on this other side, I'm going to divide this into 2. It depends on how many lines you want. So at this is optional. You can do it however you want to. So guys, please subscribe to my channel, like this video. So this part, I want to take out about 2 inches from the waistline. So I came in 1 inch to my right, and then 1 inch to my left side, and then take out an extra dart. So that's what I did. So to snatch, to make sure that my waistline, so at that point I came out too much, so I realized it and then corrected it. So that line, just ignore that line. Okay, so now I took out 2 inches from that side, and then took out 1 inch from the center part. So I have my pattern all set and ready, my corset. So the next thing, I am just going to cut this. I'll take out the armhole area. So since I am going to be using it, I'm going to be adding a yoke. So this yoke part, if you notice, you can see the way I'm cutting it. I came up, I did not cut on the exact line. So I've cut that part out, and then the next thing, I will cut out all of my pieces. So if you want to adapt this into a cupped corset, is a simple process. If you have been following me, I have videos on my YouTube channel that I did recently of how to draft corset like this. Okay, if you want it to become a cupped corset and not a Victorian like this, you can actually watch those videos, and then you'll be able to create that style line for your pattern also. Okay, so at this point, I'm just trying to cut out all of my pieces to make sure that we are done and ready. So you can see, this is how simple this is. So this is my fabric. So please like this video. Like I said, in the next video, we're going to learn how to sew this. So these are all of the pieces ironed. Thank you guys.